I think we're headed for a time that we're in for unbelievable change, and not all of it bad. But remember that book I talked to you about called The Fourth Turning that said that time is not linear. The way things change, you can't look at what's happening today and say, well, this is just going to continue to accelerate, and so it will be like this, except 10 times worse 20 years from now, because the generations change, and each generation has their own mark. So as this new generation comes in, they're going to change things, and so you can't predict. They're going to pivot, and so you can't predict what the future is going to be, because we're not going to be making the decisions for much longer. The guys who are making the decisions now at the top, that hippie generation, they're going to die. They're going to lose their power, and they're going to die, and the next generation will pivot in a different way. And you're seeing this now on a couple of things, and I want to talk about them next hour. We'll go in depth. But in England and in New York, people are now starting, millennials are printing their own currencies. They're artisan currencies, and they're starting to trade locally on their own currencies. Nobody's doing anything about it.
Kind of like Bitcoin, only paper currency.
Except it's paper currency,
and
it's local. So it's meant to, the shops in these towns are saying, well, we're only doing it locally because we want to keep our money here. So you go and you buy local currency, and then they're accepted at all of the local shops.
It's like the old coal miner town used to do.
Right.
The companies used to have their own coal money.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
So it's the same thing, but it's the millennials that are doing it. And it's the same idea as what's also happening now in London. They're saying all of the nightclubs are dying. Nightclubs will be a thing of the past. Because
gone from like over 3,000 to something like 1,100.
Yeah, because millennials are not going. Because they have Kindle, they want to go to places
Tinder.
that are
Just hook up.
not Kindle,
Yeah.
Tinder. They go to places where they like to take pictures. They want to have an experience, and they don't want to have the same experience every Friday night. So they're looking for something entirely different.
And they don't need a nightclub to meet people.
Right.
They meet people on Tinder.
So what I'm trying to say is, we are at a place now where literally, and now I've said this in the past and meant this in a bad way, this is not necessarily a bad thing on this front. You're not going to recognize our society in 10 years. It will be radically different because technology is changing everything. Because the millennials are starting to come in, and it's an entirely new generation that sees the world in a different way. For instance, you will see in the next 10 to 15 years, you will see car companies really start to struggle. Really struggle. Why? Because ride sharing is going to become a thing of the future. Why own the car when I can it's like bikes in cities. When I can just ride share. When I can just get online and say, hey, who's going to this place and at what time? And it's not for environmental reasons or anything else. It's just not part of the culture. The idea of getting your driver's license at 16 was a big deal for us. In cities all across America now, it's not a big deal. In fact, I was talking to the guy who started, not Uber, but what's the competitor of Uber?
Lyft.
Mm-hmm. Talking to the guy who started Lyft. And his daughter at like 20 years old, 19 years old, she said she didn't even have her driver's license. And she said, now this is the guy who started Lyft. She said, Dad, why do you have a car? And he's like, what do you mean, why do I have a car? She's like, why do you have a car? I mean, not only are you the guy who started Lyft, why do you have a car? What a waste of money that is. And he realized, I don't have to market to this generation. They get it. They're there. They just think differently.